Welcome back to Culture Code English. I am so glad you are here today. Take a slow, deep breath, let your shoulders drop, get completely comfortable, and relax. Today, we are going to explore a deeply profound, invisible, and sacred boundary of American life, the legal idea of the castle doctrine, and why your home is treated like an untouchable fortress. Imagine walking through a quiet American neighborhood on a warm afternoon. You see open green lawns, colorful flowers, and houses without any high stone walls or iron gates. Everything looks peaceful, welcoming, and friendly. You might think that anyone can walk anywhere without a second thought, but under this quiet surface, there is an invisible red line. If a stranger walks onto a private lawn to take a shortcut, the homeowner might feel annoyed. They might shout from a window or call the local police for trespassing. That is a social warning. But if that same stranger comes at night, steps onto the porch, and violently tries to force open the locked front door, the entire world changes in a single second. In American legal culture, the front door is not just a piece of wood. It is a sacred boundary. Crossing the grass is a simple property dispute, but trying to break through the front door is seen as a direct threat to human life. This is where a famous cultural and legal idea comes into play. It is called the castle doctrine. Under this rule, your home is your ultimate fortress. You have no legal duty to run away inside your own house, and the law gives you the absolute right to defend your space. Let me tell you about Leo. Leo was a young graphic designer who moved into a quiet suburb in Texas. One rainy midnight, while reading a book in his living room, Leo heard a heavy, metallic sound at his entrance. Someone was aggressively rattling the locked door handle, trying to force their way inside. Leo felt his heart beating fast, but he did not panic. He knew his rights and his boundary. He stayed inside, called emergency services on his phone, and shouted clearly through the door that the house was occupied and the police were on their way. Hearing Leo's strong, confident voice from inside the fortress, the intruder quickly backed away and vanished into the dark. Leo later realized that his front door was far more than a piece of home design. It was a legal shield. The castle doctrine exists so that every resident can sleep with complete peace of mind, knowing that their home is an untouched sanctuary. To truly understand why Americans are so passionate about protecting their homes, we must travel back in time. This mindset did not begin in modern America. It was forged 400 years ago in the narrow, cobblestone streets of 17th century England. During that time, ordinary people had very few rights. Kings, lords, and royal officers held almost total power over daily life. But in the year 1604, a landmark legal decision changed history forever. It was called Semane's case. A famous English judge named Sir Edward Coke wrote down words that would echo across centuries. He declared that the house of every person is to them as their castle and fortress. This ruling created the legendary phrase, "A man's home is his castle." For the first time in history, the law drew a clear boundary between the power of the ruler and the privacy of the citizen. The court ruled that even if you were a humble craftsman living in a small wooden house, royal officers could not simply kick down your door or enter your living space without strict legal permission. The closed front door became a legal wall that stopped absolute power in its tracks. Consider the story of Thomas, a hard-working weaver living in London in 1620. Thomas worked long hours at his loom to support his family. One stormy evening, an aggressive royal officer came to Thomas's door, shouting loudly and demanding to search his home without showing a proper legal warrant. In earlier times, Thomas would have been forced to bow down and open his door in fear. But Thomas knew the law of the land. He pulled the heavy iron bolt shut, looked through the small wooden window, and spoke with calm strength. He told the officer that his door was locked, his home was his fortress, and no one could enter without a proper legal order. The angry officer pounded on the heavy oak door, but he knew he could not break it down without breaking the law himself. Eventually, the officer had to turn around and walk away into the rain. Inside his warm, dimly lit home, Thomas sat down with his family. For the first time, he felt that his small house was not just a shelter from the rain, but a fortress of freedom protected by the law. This historical moment created a deep cultural truth that still shapes the Western world today. The castle doctrine was born from the idea that every citizen, no matter how poor or humble, deserves a private space where they are fully safe and free. As the young American nation expanded toward the West in the 19th century, the idea of the castle took on a powerful new meaning. In traditional English law, there was a strict rule known as the duty to retreat. This rule meant that if someone attacked you outside your home, you were legally required to run away as far as possible, all the way to a wall, before you could use force to defend yourself. The old European law believed that running away was always better than fighting. But as American settlers moved across the vast, wild frontier of the West in the 1800s, this ancient rule began to crumble. On the isolated plains, sheriff deputies were often days away. Help was nowhere to be found. American judges began to ask a fundamental question: why should an honest, law-abiding citizen be forced to run like a coward when they are doing nothing wrong? In the late 19th century, American courts made a series of famous legal decisions. They created what became known as the True Man Doctrine, which later evolved into modern, stand-your-ground laws. The courts ruled that if you are in a place where you have a legal right to be, and someone attacks you without cause, you have no duty to flee. You have the right to stand your ground and defend your life and dignity. Consider the story of Elias, a rancher living in Wyoming in 1870. Elias built a small wooden cabin and raised cattle on a lonely stretch of land miles away from the nearest town. One afternoon, while working near his barn, 3 outlaws rode up to his fence, demanding his horses and threatening his life. Under the Old English law, Elias would have been expected to drop his tools, run into the forest, and hide. But in the American West, running meant losing everything he had worked for. Elias stood firmly beside his wooden fence, held his hunting rifle in his hands, and calmly warned the outlaws that he was on his own land and would defend it. Seeing his complete lack of fear and his determination to stand his ground, the outlaws realized that Elias would not back down. They turned their horses around and rode away into the dusty hills. This frontier spirit transformed the American legal mind. The castle doctrine was no longer just about 4 walls and a locked front door. It became a broader cultural belief in self-reliance and personal independence. It taught Americans that when you are on the side of the law, you do not have to bow down or run away. You have the sacred right to stand tall and defend your space. To many people around the world, America's deep relationship with gun ownership seems very difficult to understand. Why are firearms so deeply woven into daily American society? To decode this secret, you must look through the lens of the castle doctrine. In the American legal mind, a right written on a piece of paper is not enough unless a citizen has the physical ability to enforce it. A heavy wooden door and a metal lock can slow a criminal down, but a weapon provides the ultimate physical shield when real danger arrives. This is the hidden philosophy behind the Second Amendment. In American culture, firearms are not viewed simply as tools for hunting or sport, nor are they just for stopping street crime. In the traditional Western view, the right to bear arms is the ultimate check and balance. It ensures that the sacred boundary of a citizen's home cannot be easily broken by anyone, whether it is a criminal or a government overstepping its legal limits. The weapon is seen as the physical armor that makes the castle doctrine real. This reveals a profound contrast between Western and Eastern social mindsets. In American culture, society is built on strict, clear boundaries. The individual's right to defend their personal sanctuary is extremely strong. The law gives citizens a high level of personal authority inside their own four walls, creating a culture of deep self-reliance. In contrast, many traditional Eastern cultures value relational harmony and strong central authority. When a conflict happens or a boundary is threatened, people often look to public officers for protection or rely on social mediation to keep the peace. Individual physical defense is rare because maintaining group harmony is often valued above personal confrontation. Neither way of thinking is superior, but understanding this code helps you see the world with greater clarity. When you understand the history of the castle, you begin to see why Americans view personal safety not as a gift from the government, but as a personal duty that belongs to every free individual. How can you use this knowledge to navigate daily life in America with complete confidence? The secret is simple. Enjoy the open warmth of American society, but always honor the invisible castle line. When you walk through a neighborhood, enjoy the open lawns and friendly smiles. But remember that an American's house, their porch, and their personal space are private sanctuaries. Never walk into someone's backyard without a clear invitation, and never touch a locked door handle. Respecting these boundaries is not about fear, it is the highest form of mutual respect. Look at how far you have already come in today's lesson. You have listened to a deep, complex story about law, history, and culture completely in English. You did not need boring grammar worksheets or vocabulary lists. Your ears followed the narrative naturally and effortlessly. You are doing a wonderful job. Be patient with your learning process. Unlocking a new language is not a sprint. It is like watching a strong oak tree grow day by day. Every story you hear, every cultural code you decode, and every quiet minute you spend listening is retraining your brain to think directly in English. Consistency is your superpower. You do not need to study until you feel completely exhausted. Just 15 minutes of active, peaceful listening every single day will create extraordinary transformation over time. If you enjoyed discovering the history behind the castle doctrine today, and if you are ready to make daily listening a natural part of your English journey, make a simple, powerful promise to yourself right now. Leave a mark of your growth in the comments below. Type, "I am learning every day" in the comments right now. By leaving these 5 words, you are telling your mind that you are growing. You are taking another step toward true fluency and deep understanding. Thank you so much for spending this peaceful, meaningful time with me today on Culture Code English. Keep listening, keep practicing with patience, and never lose your curiosity. I look forward to decoding another fascinating piece of our world with you very soon. Have a wonderful, relaxing day, and keep listening every single day.